because, you know, when last time I saw him, his eyes were still open. You know, he was just looking up, you know, just looking like, you know, like, and by that time, his truck had came back around.
The hip-hop world just witnessed the fall of a titan and the final devastating twist in a cold case mystery that's haunted the culture for nearly 3 decades. We're talking about Sean Diddy Combs, the self-proclaimed king of New York, the architect of Bad Boy Records, the man who built an empire on beats, bravado, and an iron grip on the industry. But today, that empire lies in ruins, because after years of whispers, lawsuits, and half-buried truths, the unthinkable has happened. Diddy has been handed a life sentence, not for the crimes that made headlines in 2024, not for the allegations that filled civil courts, but for his long-suspected role in the 1997 drive-by tragedy that took the life of Christopher Wallace, the notorious B.I.G., and the evidence that finally sealed his fate? It didn't come from a courtroom subpoena or a leaked FBI file. It came from Netflix. Yes, you heard that right. The same streaming giant Diddy once dismissed as a shameful hit piece factory has now delivered the knockout blow. Their 4-part documentary, Sean Combs, The Reckoning, didn't just rehash old scandals. It unearthed never-before-seen footage of Diddy himself, captured in the days before his 2024 arrest, strategizing with his legal team in what can only be described as a moment of raw, unfiltered panic. "We have to find somebody that'll work with us," he's heard saying on tape, his voice tight with desperation. It has to be somebody that has dealt in the dirtiest of dirty business of media and propaganda.
This is the flight where Diddy said to her,
showed her the video,
testified
showed her
that
the freak-off video.
He showed her a video of a freak-off that she participated in and said, if you don't participate in another freak-off when we get to New York, I'm going to put this video out. I'm going to send it to your mother.
And that's coercion.
She testified to that.
If the jury
believed her, that's coercion. They would have Cassie.
Those words, meant for private ears, became the centerpiece of a prosecution argument that painted Diddy not as a victim of a corporate smear campaign, but as a man orchestrating his own survival, while the walls closed in. And buried in that same documentary, the bombshell that finally connected him to Biggie's tragedy. Alleged payments, witness testimonies, and a paper trail that prosecutors argue proves Diddy didn't just know about the hit, he bankrolled it. Let's rewind to understand how we got here. For years, the loss of the notorious B.I.G. has been the ultimate cold case, a puzzle missing its most critical piece. The LAPD's investigation stalled. Suspects came and went. Theories swirled, from gang retaliation to industry conspiracies, but no one was ever charged. Then, in 2023, the tide began to turn. First, with the emergence of Dwayne "Keffy D" Davis, a former death row associate who, under a proffer agreement, claimed Diddy had offered a 7-figure bounty for a hit on Shakur, a rivalry that, by 1997, had spiraled into all-out war.
Which, again, the judge kind of made this a point, too, talking about, okay, well, if we're going to continue to do sidebars each and every single time that a prospective juror has to talk about a sensitive topic, that could take up a lot of time. But again, the defense and the government both seem pretty confident that they'll still be able to kind of get it going at a quick pace. This isn't unusual to do in these types of high-profile cases. So that was pretty much just the topics about, Ghislaine.
Davis' claims were explosive, but they lacked the one thing prosecutors needed: direct ties to Biggie's tragedy. That changed when The Reckoning dropped, because hidden in its final episode was the testimony of Kirk Burroughs, Diddy's own former Bad Boy co-founder, who didn't just suggest Diddy was involved in Biggie's demise. He flat out stated he had a lot to do with it. Couple that with the documentary's revelation that Diddy had been filming himself for decades, obsessively documenting his moves, and you've got a prosecution goldmine. When investigators got their hands on those private tapes, footage Diddy's team insists was stolen, they found more than just a man scrambling to control his narrative. They found a pattern. And here's where the irony cuts deepest. Diddy spent years dismissing Netflix as a platform for corporate retaliation, a tool for his enemies, namely 50 Cent, the rapper-turned-mogul who executive produced The Reckoning. "This is not a hit piece," Netflix fired back in their official statement, a line that now reads like the ultimate mic drop.
I think one thing that I haven't heard said at this table yet is bribery. So he probably promised a lot of these people either fame, fortune, riches. Whether or not he delivered, I doubt it, but that's another matter entirely, right? So that's obviously, if he incentivized some of these people in order to participate in all of these things, that wouldn't surprise me at all. Is that a definition, or does that fit a definition of coercion in any way, bribery?
Because while Diddy's legal team screamed foul play, while they accused the streamer of exploiting private conversations and violating his rights, the documentary was quietly doing something far more damaging. It was connecting dots. The same footage Diddy tried to suppress showed him in a hotel room just days before his arrest, whispering to his son Justin about God's plan while his empire crumbled around him. But the real divine intervention? That footage also included a phone call, one where Diddy, according to prosecutors, referenced settling old scores in a way that, when cross-referenced with financial records from the late 90s, allegedly pointed straight to payments made to individuals linked to the Southside Crips, the gang tied to Biggie's tragedy. Insiders claim those records were the final piece. The jury saw a man who wasn't just reacting to the chaos around him. He was directing it. Now, let's talk about the fallout, because this isn't just about one conviction. This is about the domino effect of a kingpin's downfall. Diddy's legal troubles didn't start with Biggie's case. Remember, he's already serving time for his 2024 conviction on transportation-related charges, a case built on the testimonies of Cassie Ventura and another anonymous accuser. But that was just the appetizer. The main course? The over 100 civil lawsuits alleging everything from coercive behavior to physical harm, many of which were suddenly given new life when The Reckoning aired. Because if the documentary proved one thing, it's that Diddy's playbook wasn't just about music, it was about control. And when that control slipped, the floodgates opened. Take the case of Moy Dickerson Neal, who claimed Diddy recorded and weaponized private encounters back in the 90s. Or Rodney Jones, the producer who alleged he was given substances and assaulted in a home rigged with hidden cameras. These weren't just isolated incidents, the documentary framed them as a system. A system where loyalty was enforced, silence was bought, and dissent was met with consequences.
So she testified, excuse me, that she was Diddy's ex-assistant. She said he her, sexually assaulted her in various ways multiple times. He exacted unbelievable violence against her, threatened her, one point allegedly threatened to take her phone and use anything on the phone.
And now, with Diddy facing life behind bars, the question isn't just about what he did, it's about who else knew. Because here's the thing, Diddy didn't operate in a vacuum. Bad Boy Records wasn't just a label, it was a machine, one that allegedly relied on a network of associates to keep its secrets buried. Prosecutors in his 2024 trial tried, and failed, to prove a racketeering conspiracy, arguing that Diddy's inner circle enabled his behavior. But with this new conviction, those same prosecutors are reportedly reopening files, digging into old cases, and asking a chilling question. If Diddy was willing to go this far to eliminate a rival, what else was he capable of? And who helped him do it? The documentary's director, Alexandria Stapleton, hinted at this in a recent interview, noting that while the focus was on Diddy, there are certainly elements of the story that have not been told. Elements like the freak-off gatherings, the infamous private events where, according to multiple lawsuits, boundaries were allegedly erased and careers were leveraged. Events that, insiders claim, were attended by some of the biggest names in entertainment, names that have yet to face any consequences. Meanwhile, the hip-hop world is grappling with a reckoning of its own, because Diddy's conviction doesn't just close a chapter, it rewrites history. For years, the narrative around Biggie's tragedy has been clouded by theories. Was it retaliation for Shakur's passing? A gang hit gone wrong? A label war turned violent? Now, with Diddy at the center, the story takes on a new shape. One where the lines between business and betrayal blur. One where the man who once stood on stage at the 1995 Source Awards, preaching unity between the East and West Coasts, is now the same man prosecutors say orchestrated one of the most infamous tragedies in music history.
Or you put your hand on his kid, his wife, his money, you don't know what, because for every action, there's a what?
Reaction.
There you go.
And if that's true, then the question isn't just about Diddy, it's about the entire culture that let it happen. Because while Diddy may be the one facing life in prison, he didn't build his empire alone. He had partners, he had protectors, he had an industry that looked the other way. And that's what makes this moment so explosive. Because right now, as Diddy's legal team scrambles to appeal, as his former associates distance themselves, and as the documentary's ripple effects spread, one thing is becoming painfully clear. This is bigger than one man. The same Netflix special that brought Diddy down has also put a spotlight on the systems that enabled him. From the labels that turned a blind eye to the artists who stayed silent to the media that sensationalized the feuds without asking the hard questions. And with Biggie's estate now in the hands of Primary Wave, a company that's already monetizing his legacy, the timing feels almost poetic. Because while Diddy's story may be ending in a prison cell, Biggie's is being rewritten for profit, a fact that's not lost on the fans who've spent decades demanding justice. But here's where things get even more unsettling. Because if Diddy's conviction proves one thing, it's that the past isn't gone. It's lurking in old footage, buried in financial records, and waiting in the testimonies of those who've stayed silent. Until now. And with the FBI reportedly reviewing new evidence tied to both Biggie's and Shakur's cases, the question isn't just about what Diddy did. It's about what's still hidden. Because if a Netflix documentary could unearth the truth that eluded investigators for decades, what else is out there? What other conversations were recorded? What other payments were made? And perhaps most chillingly, who else is on those tapes?
The judge didn't go into not really the judge, the government didn't go into too many details about the extent of the plea offer, but one thing that they had said was pretty much that under the plea offer, he would be facing less time than he's facing if he would have gone to trial. So when the allocution portion came, Diddy stood up, the judge kind of read him everything that he had needed to read to him, just about whether or not he...
The documentary's final moments hinted answers, with Stapleton teasing that there are people who know more than they've said. People who, until now, had every reason to stay quiet. And that brings us to where we are today. Diddy, the man who once ruled hip-hop with an iron fist, is now prisoner number whatever the system assigns him. His empire is in shambles. His legacy is in tatters. And the industry he helped build is being forced to confront its own complicity. But the story doesn't end here, because while the cameras may have stopped rolling on the reckoning, the real reckoning is just beginning. And if the past few weeks have taught us anything, it's that in the world of Sean Combs, there's always another layer, another secret, another tape, another name waiting to surface. The question is no longer if more shoes will drop. It's whose feet they'll land on. And trust us when we say this. The people sweating right now aren't just the ones in Diddy's inner circle. They're the ones who thought they'd never have to answer for what they saw, for what they enabled, for what they helped bury. And with the FBI's renewed interest, with civil lawsuits stacking up, and with a documentary that's given prosecutors a roadmap, one thing is certain: the digging has only just begun. The moment Diddy's life sentence was handed down, the floodgates didn't just open, they were ripped off their hinges. Because what we're seeing now isn't just the fall of one man. It's the unraveling of a decades-long cover-up, one that insiders claim was held together by fear, money, and the sheer weight of Diddy's influence. And the most damning question hanging in the air: why did it take a Netflix documentary, one produced by his longtime rival 50 Cent, to finally expose what so many have whispered for years?
Now, the big thing that is really interesting, and it's going to be a big problem for the defense if you look at this mock jury, the Cassie video. He is not being prosecuted for it. That's a state crime in California, and the statute of limitations is run. But I am telling you, that video was thunderous for a bunch of these jurors.
The answer, according to sources close to the investigation, lies in the systematic suppression of evidence, a pattern of intimidation that allegedly kept witnesses silent and records buried. Dwayne Keffy D. Davis, the man who spent years dropping hints about Diddy's involvement in Shakur's tragedy, didn't just suddenly decide to talk. He did it because, for the first time, he had backup, in the form of Kirk Burroughs, Diddy's own former Bad Boy co-founder, who didn't just suggest complicity in Biggie's demise, but flat out stated on camera that Diddy had a lot to do with it. And when you pair that with the documentary's revelation of alleged million-dollar offers tied to the Southside Crips, the picture becomes terrifyingly clear. This wasn't just a crime. It was a calculated elimination, one that required layers of protection to keep it hidden. But here's where the story gets even darker, because the Netflix documentary didn't just drop a bombshell, it detonated a chain reaction. And the first domino to fall after Diddy's conviction? The credibility of everyone who ever stood by him. Take Mark Agnifilo, Diddy's high-powered attorney, who was caught on those same leaked tapes advising his client on media strategy in the days before his arrest. "We are losing," Diddy is heard saying, his voice thick with panic. "We have to find somebody that'll work with us." That wasn't the sound of a man fighting for his reputation. That was the sound of a man who knew the truth was closing in. And if Agnifilo was privy to those conversations, what else did he know? What other strategies were discussed behind closed doors? The legal world is buzzing with rumors that Agnifilo's firm is now distancing itself from Diddy's case, a move that insiders say isn't just about optics, it's about self-preservation. Because if the FBI starts digging into those tapes, if they start pulling threads on who else was in the room during those frantic calls, the question isn't just about Diddy's guilt, it's about who helped him cover it up. And let's talk about the money, because in a story like this, the paper trail never lies. The documentary's most explosive claim? That Diddy didn't just allegedly arrange Biggie's tragedy. He funded it, with payments funneled through shell companies and middlemen tied to the same gangs that carried out the hit. Now, financial investigators are reportedly combing through Bad Boy's old books, looking for discrepancies, for transfers that don't add up, for anything that might connect Diddy's empire to the violence that defined the 90s.
The defense wanted to propose a question on, after the potential jurors filled out their questionnaire, have they seen any news media, any documentaries, anything just relating to a news medium, and whether or not they saw it in between them filling out the questionnaire to Monday morning when they saw, or when they go to jury.
And here's the kicker. Those records don't just implicate Diddy. They implicate an entire network. Because if Diddy was moving money to silence threats, who was helping him move it? Who signed off on those transfers? Who looked the other way when the books didn't balance? The answers to those questions could turn this from a single conviction into a full-blown industry purge. And with the FBI's renewed interest in both Biggie's and Shakur's cases, the stakes have never been higher. Meanwhile, the hip-hop world is divided like never before. On one side, you've got the old guard, the artists, the producers, the executives who built their careers alongside Diddy and who are now scrambling to rewrite their own histories. Then there's the new generation, the ones who grew up on the myths of Bad Boy's golden era, who are now staring at the ugly truth beneath the gloss. And caught in the middle? The families of the men whose lives were cut short. Valletta Wallace, Biggie's mother, spent decades fighting to keep her son's legacy alive. Now, with Diddy's conviction, she's finally getting the validation she's long demanded. But at what cost? Because while the truth may be coming out, it's also reopening wounds. And with Primary Wave now controlling Biggie's estate, with his music and likeness being monetized in ways Valletta herself may not have envisioned, the irony is brutal. The same industry that allegedly profited from his tragedy is now profiting from his legacy. But let's not forget the other side of this equation. Suge Knight, the former death row mogul, currently serving his own prison sentence for manslaughter, has been eerily silent since Diddy's conviction. And that silence speaks volumes. Because if Diddy was pulling strings on the East Coast, Knight was doing the same on the West. The two men were mirror images, ruthless, powerful, and utterly convinced that the ends justified the means. And now, with Diddy locked away for life, the question isn't just about what he did. It's about what Knight knew, because if Diddy was willing to go to such extremes to protect his empire, what was Knight willing to do to protect his?
He seemed to be taking this kind of matter seriously. Now, I will just kind of preface it and say it. I haven't seen the documentary, but it's not out of the realm, or it's not out of the norm that she even went on this documentary as well, too, because she had previously gone on another documentary and kind of talked about her client's accusations against Diddy as well, too. So I was surprised that they brought up this particular documentary. Again, I don't know the extent of what she had said, but the defense seemed very annoyed in a way. And
the FBI's files on death row's operations in the 90s are legendarily thick, filled with allegations of intimidation, payoffs, and worse. And with Diddy's conviction setting a precedent, with prosecutors now armed with a blueprint for how to connect old crimes to new evidence, Knight's legal team is reportedly on high alert. Because if one mogul can fall, so can another. And then there's the Netflix effect. Because let's be real, this documentary didn't just expose Diddy, it exposed an entire system of complicity. The same industry that turned a blind eye to Diddy's alleged behavior for decades is now being forced to confront its own role in enabling him. And the fallout is already beginning. We've learned that Misa Hilton, Diddy's ex and mother of his eldest son, has been approached about her own tell-all project, one that insiders say will delve into the dark underbelly of Bad Boy's rise. Then there's Cassie Ventura, whose lawsuit against Diddy was the first domino to fall in his legal downfall. Her team is reportedly cooperating with investigators, providing details that could tie Diddy's past actions to a larger pattern of behavior. And let's not forget the dozens of civil lawsuits still pending, each one a potential landmine of new evidence. Because if Diddy's conviction proves one thing, it's that the past isn't done with him yet. But perhaps the most chilling aspect of this story is the unanswered questions. Like, for instance, the other tapes. Because if Diddy was filming himself for decades, if he was obsessively documenting his every move, what else is out there? What other conversations were recorded? What other confessions might be hiding in plain sight? Insiders claim that the footage used in The Reckoning is just the tip of the iceberg, that there are hours of unreleased material. Material that could implicate not just Diddy, but an entire circle of enablers.
He was responsible for Diddy's day-to-day life, so he is able to provide a lot of information about what that life was like. He goes into detail on extensive use.
And with the FBI now treating this case as active, with prosecutors reportedly reopening old files, the possibility of more indictments isn't just likely, it's inevitable. Because if Diddy's conviction has taught us anything, it's that no one is untouchable. And that brings us to the real bombshell, the one that no one's talking about yet, but that everyone in the industry is dreading. Because if Diddy's conviction proves that he was willing to go to any lengths to protect his empire, then what else is he capable of? What other secrets are buried in those tapes? What other names might surface? The documentary's director, Alexandria Stapleton, hinted at this in a recent interview, noting that while the focus was on Diddy, there are people who know more than they've said. People who, until now, had every reason to stay silent. But with Diddy facing life in prison, with his empire in freefall, with the walls closing in, the question isn't just about what he did, it's about who's next. Because if the FBI can use a Netflix documentary to take down one of the most powerful men in hip-hop, imagine what they can do with everything else they find. So where does that leave us? With a man once known as the King of New York, now spending the rest of his days behind bars. With an industry forced to confront its own complicity in his rise and fall. With families still grieving. With lawsuits still pending. With truths still untold. And with one inescapable reality. This story is far from over. Because if Diddy's conviction has proven anything, it's that the past has a way of catching up. And if a single documentary could unearth the secrets that have haunted hip-hop for decades, just imagine what's still buried. Now, we want to hear from you. Do you think Diddy's conviction is the end of the story? Or just the beginning? Are there others in his circle who should be nervous right now? And what do you think happens next? Will more tapes surface? Will more names fall? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, because this is one conversation that's just getting started. And as always, stay tuned, stay sharp, and remember, in a world built on secrets, the truth is the most dangerous weapon of all. Until next time, keep your eyes open and your guard up, because if there's one thing this story has taught us, it's that no one is safe from the past.